All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Frances Jo Hamilton with Heritage Ohio, and this morning we get to hear from Jason Duff with Small Nation. Feel free to ask any and all questions as we go in the Q&A box. You can also type those in the chat box if you're having trouble finding that. This session has 1.5 AIA credits available, so if you would like registered for these credits, please send your AIA member number and or whether you'd like a certificate of completion to this session to the office manager at heritageohio.org. We'll put all that information in the chat box along with the AIA learning objectives. Thank you so much to the State Historic Preservation Office for the Ohio History Connection for sponsoring and continuing education credits this year. Jonathan Sandvik is our opener for our session today with Sandvik Architects, and I'm gonna lob it over to Jonathan to do a little intro. Good morning, Jonathan.
Well, good morning. I'm certainly glad to be here, and I'm glad to introduce Jason Duff. Pervasively, I'm going to have him introduce himself, but I think it's fair to say we have a very talented individual, and we're very blessed. We've had a lot of wonderful speakers, and Jason Duff is one of those that we're glad to have as a member of our conference this time. So with that, Jason, I'll let you do an entree.
Hey, thank you, Jonathan, and good morning, and appreciate Frances Jo as well. Hello, everyone. I am Jason Duff from Small Nation. And I hope that you've got your coffee charged, fueled up, because we've got an hour and a half that I am just so excited to be with this group and among this group of people that are passionate about small towns and passionate about Main Street. So a little bit about my background and what we do at Small Nation is I grew up with two families, two parents that were small business owners. My dad had businesses in construction materials, and we sold concrete and lumber and stone. And my mom owned a Hallmark store growing up. So I can wrap a gift in 2 minutes or under. So if anyone on the webinar needs help wrapping Christmas gifts, I'm fully trained. I also was paid in Beanie Babies. That was kind of my compensation growing up. So if you recognize my face, I was the guy down in Trader's World, down in the Cincinnati area, selling Beanie Babies for when they were going for a lot more than the $6 that I was buying them for. So, you know, I've lived through the fun of working in a family business and also working in retail, but having a background and passion for construction materials. So why does Main Street matter to me? When I was working in my parents' small businesses, many of my experiences growing up were walking the streets and getting to know the other small business owners that existed in small towns around where I grew up. I can tell you about when I was 13 years old, as a young man, I met Jim Greer, and he owned Huber Buckenroth men's clothing store. And he outfitted me in my first suit and also taught me how to tie a tie. And as a young man, that emotional experience of being, you know, able to tie a tie on my own and have that pride and have that experience meant a lot to me. There was an emotional connection. And I could walk up and down and tell you the independent pharmacist that when my family members were ill that would take care of us, or the experiences of going into that magical donut shop when I was good and my sister and I would be able to celebrate a birthday or a family experience. All of those things coming together are really a big part of my DNA. So let's fast forward a few years. I left to go to get my college education. I happened to be, by trade and experience, a music performance major. So my background originally was not business, even though I grew up in business. So what was great about having that university experience, I got to pursue the arts and the creative side that really challenged me, and it gave me confidence because I was a really shy person, but that performance experience gave me confidence speaking in front of other people, but it also allowed me to be able to persuade people or to communicate really important concepts. So I came back after being gone for a few years away at the university, and a lot of things changed in the towns that I knew. the big box pharmacies came in and bought out the independents. The Stage department store, Huber Buckenroth, which was the men's clothing store that meant a lot to me, they all went out of business or closed. And over a period of time, why Bellefontaine, and that's the town that we started in, why that was not my hometown, it was a town that was important to me because my mom had her store there. So, back in about 2004, 2005, over 70% of the first floor spaces in our town were vacant and empty. And, there's something emotional, and there's a lot of folks probably on here that their towns have maybe been in a point in history that has been the reality. And either you can say I was extremely naive or I was brilliant, but I wanted to do something to solve the problem. So to start to solve the problem, I started buying historic buildings. Oftentimes, the economic reality of what existed in our town is that most of the existing building owners would rather sell the building for $1 than maintain the property taxes, the insurance, and the much needed repairs and maintenance that needed to happen with those properties. So, naive or brilliant, back, 12, 15 years ago, started buying buildings for $1. And then we had to solve the problem for how do we bring those buildings back to life. And so today we're going to talk about how to overcome a lot of the negative naysayers, a lot of the barriers, a lot of the burdens, a lot of the challenges for how to restore, revitalize, and grow your town. And not only are we going to talk about those barriers and those challenges and strategies to do that, but we're going to talk about how to become best in state. And I know that's a really lofty thing because the town that we started working in, and it's no offense to it, but we were an underrated town. A community in Logan County, a community that existed at 46,000 people. The county seat, which is our courthouse community, is Bellefontaine, and that is a community of 13,000 people. And, we really struggled with the identity for what makes the town distinctive. Why would you want to travel there to experience, shop, eat, dine, and tell your friends about it? And so I'm going to walk you guys on a journey through some pictures, some stories, and what's really important to get the most out of today's session, I'd like you to make a list of questions. And there is no question that you cannot bring on the table. It could be, how much did that cost? How did you raise funds? How did you overcome that barrier? How did you work with your private-public partnerships? Or, maybe it's a roadblock that you're running into with a particular project or example in your town. But, I founded a company, and it took a long time to really talk about everything that we do. Because as a real estate investor, we were buying buildings, we had to renovate them, we had to recruit tenants, and then we had to help those tenants with ongoing marketing, coaching, and support. And so I needed a way to describe that. Well, I can tell you something I'm really passionate about is small towns and small businesses. And collectively, I believe that small towns and small businesses are a very big deal. So we came up with a name for our company, and that is Small Nation. And I truthfully believe that if you really add up and look all around the country, small towns and small businesses are really a huge part of what we do. And so I'm flipping over to my slides right now, and I think you guys should be able to see those. If not, please raise your hand or let me know if that's the case. But I'm just going to kind of jump in here. I am the founder and CEO of Small Nation, and what Small Nation does is we invest in places, spaces, and dreams for small towns and entrepreneurs. And I'm just going to talk about, one of the things that I just want to call out the white elephant in the room is, since March, I know that many of us on this call have truly experienced, and there's no other word, and experienced trauma. Because when COVID started hitting and many of our towns and businesses and restaurants and hair salons and gyms were all systematically starting to be shut down, we had to really unite, organize on what we're going to do to keep people safe while also helping our small businesses strive to stay open and strive to sell and strive to be successful. So, one of the things that I just want to, we'll spend a lot of time maybe towards the end of how we now, through COVID, can identify how we overcome barriers, some strategies to do that, resources that we can share with others, but also what trends and what opportunities are in this new reality. So, what you're looking at here is a mobile billboard.
We don't see your screen yet.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So let me just see if we can get that to work. Thank you, Joyce, for raising your hand on that. Here we go.
There we go.
Thank you. Okay, we see the screen now? Good, awesome, thank you. So, like I was just kind of jumping through, this is that mobile billboard that I was sharing with you guys. So, we had to work to develop a program to help businesses be able to have the language and the confidence and be able to communicate with their employees and their customers about how they could reopen. So we developed the Live Smart, Stay Safe campaign. And there's a website that we're going to drop into the comments that I want you to look at that includes a lot of free resources that, especially right now, being able to have the language, the posters, the window clings, the messaging for how you can keep your employees and customers safe. All of this is downloadable for free. And I want to just hit it off right now because as I'm talking, you may be able to check some of this out or use in your business, in your town, in your community. And that website is livesmartstaysafe.com. And one of the things in terms of really overcoming barriers is the entrepreneurial spirit that exists in the town. And when we first started, 10, 15 years ago, that is what the big thing that was lacking. Now, what I think is what COVID has really done for us is forced us to overcome, conditions and realities that we didn't ever think that could exist. And I think for a lot of towns, there's this cycle where, maybe the town is living its peak where industry is thriving, organizations are talking and working together, committees are functioning, and then there are periods of time, whether it's leadership changes, whether it's recession, that there's these different cycles. And I just want to share what I think COVID is doing for us. It's really causing us to reset a lot of things. The way that we're thinking, the way that we're processing, the old way that we used to do business may no longer work. So what we have to do is we have to overcome and we have to innovate, be creative, collaborate, and grow. And the picture that we're looking at is actually this amazing toy store in our town called The Fun Company. And you'll see, for example, that the premise of their business model prior to COVID was to have you come inside their store, encourage the kids, the grandkids, people of all ages to play with their toys, to learn about the kits that they sell, the educational supplies. But when COVID hit, it was no longer safe to do that. So you can see in this example, providing and implementing an online store, providing curbside pickup, and really from the outside, making sure the branding, the imaging, the message communicated that we are open and we are online. The other thing that I got pretty frustrated about was here in Ohio, there was a very clear line between what businesses were deemed essential and what businesses were deemed not. And I know everyone on here has probably a similar sentiment, is that all small businesses are essential, especially our independent retailers. So one of the things that I really worked to do when we were seeing our town start to close down is how can we create attention around getting small businesses as much resource and support they possibly can. So, I had a chance to do several live interviews with CNBC. We were, providing information and knowledge to the Wall Street Journal about how the PPP program was doing, how to get small businesses that were attempting to get EIDL loans, how that was working, was that not working. But still, at the end of the day, we had to do something to get the word out of what we can be doing to help small businesses. So the story of how we are working on to improve our town 7 years ago, this is an infographic that we share on our website, but 7 years ago, the town, like I said, was 70% vacant. We heard a lot of obstacles in our town of the reason why it was not successful is that buildings were falling down. Probably the second one that was most common is there is no parking. I know many of us constantly hear that, even when there's abundance of parking, there's still not enough parking. And then there really weren't people saying, I want to buy and invest and then spend the really costly money that takes to renovate those buildings. So for us, we had to find, how do we overcome those barriers? And then how do we show and give people some examples that are working? And so I'm gonna share a little bit about how we did that and actually show you some visuals. But just to share a little bit about my background and what we do at Small Nation, I'm the founder, and then we set out, 7 years ago, bought our first building, and in the last 7 years, we've renovated now more than 30 historic buildings in Bellefontaine, Ohio. We have raised and contributed $17 million in new private investment, done 24 loft apartments. We have built and operate 2 event centers. That has contributed to 121 new downtown jobs, 7 new downtown eateries, and 17 new specialty retail stores. Now, there are 2 facts in this infographic that I think are extra special, is that what's happening in our town, it happens to be that 70% of these new entrepreneurs and businesses in the last 7 years are people that are under the age of 40, and 75% of them are women. So part of the success of what is happening here in Bellefontaine is this rock star group of leading ladies that are truthfully transforming and changing this town. And so those are some data and statistics that we're really proud of. Let's just talk about, towns. And I imagine if you go back to your historical society or check out on eBay, you're going to see these awesome historic postcards. And I love traveling to antique malls and checking out other towns. And the first thing I do is I said, do you have any historic photos of what your town was like 100 years ago? And so, the scene that you're looking at here of Main Street of Bellefontaine is probably pretty similar to how many of your towns looked 120, 150 years ago. It was the center for commerce, for conversation, for traffic, for fun, for community. And that was because of certain businesses like JCPenney, like Montgomery Ward, like Murphy's. I mean, all of these stores, many of them peppered and lined the streets of our towns. And so when you look at your town today, one of the first steps that I try to do is really dive in to know the history of the town. What is in its DNA that makes it unique, compelling, weird, interesting? And then when other people talk about your town, what is it that they say or talk about? Do they talk about the railroad history? Do they talk about that thriving business that was there for 100 years? Or do they talk about certain celebrities or people that created or have done something significant in your town? Like the more weird, interesting, compelling, like I love that history. And I think what had happened to Bellefontaine is they had forgotten what made the town significant. So this one example of this street, which is actually the man that's pictured there is George Bartholomew. And he took clay, sand, and marl and mixed it together in the pharmacy that he owned across the street and invented concrete. Concrete, and coming from a family that was passionate about building materials, concrete is one of the most, probably the #1 building material that's used all around the world. And those origins and that root for that material happened in Bellefontaine, Ohio. The other thing is right next to this street is an Edward Jones office. And I love to take people on downtown tours because I'll point to that office and I'll say, Edward Jones graduated Bellefontaine High School in 1913 before he moved off to St. Louis, Missouri to found Edward Jones Financial. And Edward Jones is that household name that everyone knows. But what's even cooler is when you can go to your local history society and really dig in to those founders, those creators, those people's story, and then retell that story in your projects, in your menu items, in your restaurants, in everything that makes your town's DNA. And so for us, like I am right here, we're looking at a building right in front of our courthouse on Main Street, which Main Street happens to be the busiest and highest traffic route in the community. We have the town north is Kenton, the town south is West Liberty and Urbana. So it's a highly trafficked route. But you see all of these empty buildings. The good thing in this picture is we actually see that there's the local art society actually helped put some art in the windows. So it still didn't look that terrible, but the challenge is it's still vacant. But this is where you've got to dream up some ideas and be intentional about what do you want to see in your town and your community and what is missing. And one of the most powerful things with social media today is the act of taking a picture and asking your community, what do you want to see here? And that's one of the easiest and best strategies to generate leads, to generate ideas, to generate conversation. And, we have found that a very successful strategy over the years. And, when we did this with this first building, a number of the comments came in that said, I wish we had restaurants in our downtown. We have to drive out of town to eat or to have a nice experience or to find a craft beer or to get a great dessert. And so, I love food. And, we had bought this first building. It's right across from the courthouse, had great bones. It was an old Almonds or Stage department store. And it had these beautiful 10 ceilings on the inside. So, I kind of surveyed in the region, who are some of the best restaurants that people will drive an hour away and wait in line to get the food and product. And there happened to be a chain of pizza restaurants in a town north of ours called Michelangelo's Pizza. And it was owned by Michael Shepard, who was the founder, and his mentee, Brittany Saxton. And I literally would go up and eat pizza as much that I could because they were unique, they were distinctive. And I would always, driving 45 an hour away, minutes away, I would, see people from my hometown and my community that would again say to me, boy, I really wish we had something like this here. So here's the challenge that we all have, because I know a lot of us would like to see more restaurants, more tenants, more, businesses in our towns. You have to connect those two things. You have to identify the building stock. You've got to find what potential businesses would work in what locations and in what buildings. And then we have to find really talented operators and doers that will help execute that idea, make that investment, and be able to sustain it. And what I found is that is not easy. Let's just be honest. Finding all three of those things is not easy. And the challenge is that there's not really a one-stop resource to go to that will help you with all of those steps. So on day one, our business model began just buying the buildings and trying to find tenants. So when we couldn't find tenants or we struggled to find tenants, we recognized we needed to take things further. We needed to find ways to, if we couldn't start the business, we may have to roll up our sleeve and start the business ourselves. So I'm going to show you a few examples how to do that. Well, here's the good news is that 600 Downtown was the first business to take a risk in Bellefontaine, Ohio. And they announced, and we were so excited, we finally found a way to get them to say, we're coming to Bellefontaine after many, many no's. And I'm sure many people on the call have heard the word no. So here's a little piece of advice. No is just a delayed version of yes. You just have to keep asking the question other ways. Do not give up. And that was kind of my process with the founder of this restaurant, wanting to recruit him to open up another location, is I had to start hearing what his no's were and coming up with solutions or ideas on how to overcome them, and also make it very easy for him that the steps that I was going to help take as the landowner and as the building owner were going to make his steps of being the operator, of being the tenant, easy, successful, and sustainable long-term. And we can talk more about how we do that. Well, here's the good thing is that you'll look at the picture on the left, and that is when the 600 originally opened. Now, imagine when I was so excited to announce that we're finally getting a new downtown restaurant. It's taken me a few years to really find that restaurant and drum that up. and I announce in the newspaper, in the radio, and all the social media channels, a new restaurant is coming to downtown Bellefontaine, and it's this amazing gourmet pizza place called 600 downtown. Well, guess what happened? All the negativity started pouring in. There's no parking. Why would you want to go downtown? Those buildings are full of mold. They're falling down. It's not safe to walk on the sidewalks. Of course, there's no parking. You hear all of those negative things. And the other fact is, I got schooled about everyone else in my life said, well, you're not very creative. There's already 13 other pizza places in our town. There's no way this business is going to make it. How many of you, and you can raise your hand just silently right now, have heard many of those negative comments when there are new ideas, new initiatives, new things proposed? Many of us, okay? Well, here's how to overcome it, is you find an operator that really makes a distinctive product, that there's a story and a brand behind that product on why it's different, why it's unique, why it's special. And the brand embodies values of something you love and support. And from day one, with 600 downtown came in, they installed brick ovens that started baking pizza at 600 degrees. The crust and the dough is made in-house daily. The imperfections in the pizza are because of its old world Italian feel. And then, what was really special is you see stories, and this young lady right here is now a leader in the pizza industry, and she was the mentee of the founder of the restaurant, and today she is the owner. Her name is Brittany Saxton. She's 33 years old. She's an amazing mom of 3 kids. She's a world famous pizza maker and the owner of 600 downtown. And so seeing the baton pass from founder to mentee to now business owner, and the coolest thing that we've done, and I want to share, I could spend an hour talking about each one of these businesses, their foundation story, their before and after pictures and how they're doing today. And all of these are broken down into downloadable free case studies for you to read, to email, to share with other business owners or other prospective business owners in your town. And they are located right on our website at smallnationstrong.com. So I just want to point that out. All of this information will be available for you for free on our website to hear those stories. But back to Brittany. So here's what was accomplished. Right now, and this has been about 5 years ago, we recognized and saw that a lot of the urban markets and the trends that was happening in urban planning was getting and incorporating outdoor patios on the sidewalks and streets of the business. Well, of course, most sidewalks in historic towns are public right-of-ways. And when we had conversations with the city, there was a number of burdens and challenges that we were trying to overcome. First, our sign ordinance wouldn't allow protruding signs in our downtown. And what I've learned for small businesses and especially restaurants, signage is one of the most important things from a marketing perspective. Especially when cars are passing by, your goal is to catch their attention and say, wow, the intrigue, the interest, the life of this town really seems interesting. Let's pull off, let's walk around and check it out. So we initially proposed to the city about building an outdoor patio in the public right-of-way. What do you think their response was? Of course, you're right. It was the word no. And so when we heard that word no, the issue is, well, how do we overcome that? Remember, I shared earlier that no is just a delayed version of yes. You just have to keep asking the question other ways. So what I did is I got some of our city leaders together and I said, would you be willing to come and can I take you out to lunch? And so we drove down and we went to a new development that was being built in Columbus. And of course, at that new development, or examples like Easton Town Center, I mean, a lot of those restaurants have really built their entire premise on having great outdoor dining space adjoining the restaurant. And so I used the analogy for my city leaders. I said, if we don't take these steps to help our downtown restaurants be able to implement these outdoor patios, other communities and other towns are literally going to eat our lunch. So how can we overcome and work together to solve that? And that's when we engaged an architect and we worked with the design review board to really update our sign code to allow marquee and protruding signs and using new technology like aluminum and LED lighting, and then also find ways to utilize the public right-of-way spaces for entrances and mailboxes for upper floor lofts, or for outdoor dining patios that are fronting the streets on Main Street to create that life, that energy, that attraction. Well, here's what I can tell you is not only when you work with a restaurant owner that makes incredible, best in state product, and then you work with them to design a restaurant that uses the historic character of the original 10 ceilings, the unique features of a brick oven, and you design products that are limited quantity. So what you're looking at, and I know it's still a little early this morning, but I could eat the entire one of these right now. This is the Detroit style crust, and it is baked in a deep dish. There's Parmesan that's baked on the crust on the outside. And this pizza is actually called the American Muscle. So it's got mushrooms and green pepper and pepperoni and then mozzarella. And then what's unique about the Detroit styles is that the sauce is put on top. How do I know these things? Because I, at Small Nation, even being the founder and CEO, I am fully trained to work in the front of the house and the back of the house of the restaurant. So when one of my tenants or one of my partners has an issue in their restaurant, I'm familiar with the point of sale system. I can wait tables. I can make pizzas in back. And I think one of the things out of the 11 other team members and employees we have at Small Nation is we all have restaurant or service-based life experience, because that is, I just find those are qualities and experiences to really revitalize and change our main streets. You have to really know the operation, and you have to be able to know, what works, what doesn't work, and how to innovate it. So, just sharing some things that I'm really proud of is we read that Wits frozen custard was closing in the short north. And for those of you that may have a Wits in your town or familiar with that brand, it is this amazing custard that is made fresh every day. There's a daily flavor. There's a weekly flavor. They started in Granville, which is just this amazing, cute little college town. But I always wanted a Wits. And here's why Wits was so important strategically for us, is we had an empty space directly next to the pizzeria. Okay. And the pizzeria got a lot of traction, got featured on the Food Network. Brittany competed in Guys Grocery Games and got second place out of 4 international pizza chefs. So all of that marketing, that media, that also really drove the restaurant. But we, again, had an empty building located right next to it. So going back, I had read that in the short north that Wits Frozen Custard was closing. So here's what I do to overcome barriers in those examples. You have to have the drive and the energy to reach out, to connect, and offer solutions. So I found the name of the franchisee. I reached out and I said, I love your product. I love your business. I'm so sorry to hear that you're closing, but I have a question for you. What happened? And he was really transparent, really honest, and said, my parking is $20 a day. My rent got doubled when I did my lease renewal, and I can't find people to work for me for under $15 an hour. He said, if you add those metrics up and look at my business model, you try to make it work selling $4 custards. And so I recognized and I sympathized with him. And then we started talking more. And he said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Bellefontaine, Ohio. And he said, I've never heard of it. And I said, well, a lot of people haven't. So I said, would you be willing to come up and take a tour? And so he came up, we took a walking tour, we ate pizza at 600 downtown. He had the product, he heard the story. And, I was a solutions guy. I said, what do you need right now to really be okay? And he said, I have to have my frozen custard machine moved out in 22 days. And so without a lease, without really, formalizing a lot of this stuff, we committed to moving that custard machine, and we found a way to, then work through the next steps of, working with the architect to design the space, build the commercial kitchen, partner up to, get a lease agreement in place. But now Wits Frozen Custard is right next to the gourmet pizza place. But that's not the picture that we're looking at, because, in a lot of downtowns, certain businesses only need a certain amount of square footage, and there's an underutilized portion of square footage. And I just want to show this was a creative idea and collaboration between the pizza restaurant and an unutilized space in the custard restaurant. So this is Bellavino Events and Wine Room. And, Brittany Saxton, that owns 600 that I mentioned to you before, she shared with me, she said, you know what? We get so many requests for private parties, for meetings, for events. And the way the restaurant is laid out, it's really difficult to accommodate those. And she said, I really visual up an idea that would enhance our business model by creating a wine room that we can host those events. I can do private dinners, and I can find a way to really elevate our wine list to even enhance the 600 experience even more. So we used a program. So we found out in our downtown that not only do we have an entertainment district established, we've also taken steps to work to establish our DORA. But we found a way to use a program that's called the Opportunity Zone and be able to renovate and improve property that allows, as an investor, to avoid a capital gain by creating an Opportunity Zone fund, which is really a simple vehicle to do, and then make that improvement and actually use that program to improve and enhance historic commercial real estate in a very small downtown. Now, what that afforded Brittany is an invitation to the White House. So last March, she was used as an example for how she used the Opportunity Zone, how we at Small Nation partnered up with that program. And it was really special for me. I attended that program in the Rose Garden and got to hear her speak about how she has implemented her second business in the downtown. So jumping on here, so restaurants, we got the first restaurant, and here's something that I think is always a goal is once you get one restaurant, the goal is how can we start getting other restaurants and especially getting them working together. So I met the two guys on each side of Adam, who's in the middle. Adam and I had been friends. He grew up in Coldwater, Ohio, which is a small town in Mercer County, and he's super passionate about marketing. And he joined our team. He's pretty much my third employee. And when he joined, we at the time were working on renting spaces. We're helping, clients with some marketing services like websites and signs and billboards, products that we have here at Small Nation. And, he grew as an employee, and he grew so much that I recognize as the owner of the company, he could basically get a job anywhere he wanted to go and probably make a lot more money than I can afford to pay him. So I just have a conversation with him, and I said, Adam, like when you go to bed at night, what do you dream about? And, what are your goals? And he looked right back at me, really clear with that answer. And he said, I want to open a bar. And Adam, and he just had a new wife and a brand new baby. And I just kind of look back and I'm like, Adam, like, are you sure that's the kind of like quality of life that you're looking for? You know how hard it is to make money in that. And he smiled at me and he said, no, I'm really passionate about craft beer. And my friends and I have got to drive an hour away if we want to have a nice night out and drink unique craft beer. So, pause on that story and then look at the other two guys. That's Brian and Jeremy. And they founded a club in our town called the Bellefontaine Body Bearding Club. You heard me right. It is a bearding club, and they have 27 guys that have beards that compete in bearding competitions around the country. Yes. So it could be the longest beard, the most colorful beard, the most creative beard. And this club, really built a reputation for being unique, fun, creative, and they decided to host an event in Bellefontaine as our historic Holland Theater was going through fundraising and we're working to renovate it. And they invited me to one of their events. Now, I know you just saw me earlier, but this is true. I can't grow a beard, but I felt that invitation was a really nice invitation. So I'm really glad I went because I ate great food. I listened to really unique music, and I drank some of the most fantastic craft beers that I have ever had. And the thing that I learned is guys with beards know a heck of a lot about craft beer. Okay. So I'm talking to them and Jeremy is a chimney sweep. He's in his 30s. Brian's a surveyor, and they're just kind of venting to me saying, man, like our careers, we're working really hard and our bodies are kind of wearing out, being out in the cold and the elements. And I'm just looking at them and I'm saying, guys, like you have this huge following of people that love your club, like love your brand. Like you always are selling your t-shirts out. Like, what is your dream and ambition? Like, what do you want to do with what you've built? And they said, well, we want to own a craft beer bar. And I think this is one thing that we really work at Small Nation to do, is come to towns and communities and find and connect the people who own buildings, the investors who have access to capital that are looking to invest, and then unique people, weird people, fun people, creative people that have good ideas they want to execute on. And so when we started in Bellefontaine, this was the building that we identified was an opportunity. Now, when you look at it, I want you to think about this. It did not have a roof. It did not have a floor, but had this really cool vintage tile, block tile on the walls. And so, we didn't have the Adam, Jeremy, and Brian, and including myself, 600 Downtown was the first restaurant. We didn't have, restaurant experience beyond what we were learning and hearing and seeing for how 600 Downtown was doing. So I'm proud of these guys because they visioned up a plan to bring craft beer, a menu of great sandwiches, and a unique flair on their menu with appetizers. And for example, this is the after picture. You'll see we reused that really cool beer wine carryout sign that was original to the building. You'll see some of their sandwiches, their Reubens and their delicious sirloins. And, they've got a lot of really unique, locally kind of designed menu items, of course, with their IPA beer pickle. And then down at the bottom, those are the mustache pretzels. They are perfect for Instagram. And of course, don't forget to upgrade that by getting the local mustard and beer cheese, okay? All of these are local food products made in our community. And so, these are the kind of creativity and ideas when you find founders that have these unique stories, that can tell that story through their menu, through their experience. Brew Fountain has now been open for 5 years, and here's what I'm really proud of. They have consistently, the last 4 years running, been rated as the #1 craft beer bar in Ohio. And that is truly because they're raving fans of customers. It truly is, if you go there and experience it, the level of detail and accuracy for how they work to hit marks and the experiences they work to create their customers. That came from many people on this team that did not have any previous restaurant experience, but we weren't afraid to really, hunker down, learn, absorb, and actually take action to put those ideas in place. Okay, so the restaurant, 5 years, business model is great. We've now got multiple restaurants in our downtown. That's the base of the pyramid. About a year and a half ago, we visioned out what our town was still missing. And we recognize that in Logan County, that catering, there's a huge need for it. Around us, we're a major manufacturing destination with Honda. We have Indian Lake, which is one of the largest inland lakes in Ohio that's about 15 minutes away. And there's a lot of folks and businesses and organizations that really need catering. The other thing that was missing is we needed a place to host parties and events. So actually having a venue space that was welcoming and was compelling and was fun and had great character to it. So we visioned up the idea of creating the Syndicate. And so it had an outdoor beer garden, about 5,000 square feet of interior event space, 2,400 square foot catering kitchen. And this was all pre-COVID and was planned to be completed in May of this year. Is anyone else really brilliant on the call about starting event centers and restaurants during a pandemic? Well, join the crowd. We're doing a few of them right now. But here's what you do is that you don't bury your head in the sand. You listen, you pivot, and you find a way to overcome. I'm really proud of this. This is last weekend, the opening of the Syndicate. It is now a fine dining restaurant experience that is opened up Thursday through Sunday. And then we have a premium brunch offering that's now happening on Saturdays and Sunday from 10 to 2. You can follow and read the menus and hear the story and see all of the photos and experiences of the Syndicate and their business model by going to syndicatedowntown.com. And here's the big benefit. The reason why the Syndicate was used is Jackson's Newsstand was a business that stood on this lot for over 70 years. Jackson's was tore down probably about 30 years ago, but inside of the building, there's a beautiful New York style bar. There's original newspapers from Bellefontaine that line all of the walls and the wallpaper. And you'll feel like it's got this old gangster kind of feel with some modern finishes and appointments, but all the story of how, sharing news, things that are off the record, all of that is kind of built into the menu and the brand. And having outdoors areas, especially post-COVID, this outdoor dining with our solar shades and some of the things that we've implemented to expand and keep the business strong has been a huge lifesaver. And I do believe for restaurants, if they're looking for examples on how to pivot and how to overcome, the Syndicate team has done a tremendous job to do it. And remember, this all started with me having a conversation with someone that was passionate about marketing, that had the dream to own a bar or restaurant, and two guys that founded a bearding club that had incredible talent of knowing craft beer, knowing the industry, and having relationships with it. So, these kind of stories, I think, really are stories that are in many of our towns, and we have to do the job to tell them. Specialty retail has been, once you establish the restaurants, and if you come to Bellefontaine, I'm really proud of our restaurant group. We have 2G's Barbecue, which is amazing smoked meats, mac and cheese, cornbread. Don's Downtown Diner has some of the best burgers that I've ever had, fresh cut fries, milkshakes. You can go, we talked about 600 Downtown, which is gourmet pizza. I can tell you about Kiyomi, which is hibachi and sushi. I can tell you about, all of these places, the Olive Tree, and now it's getting dessert places. We talked about Wits frozen custard. I'm going to be sharing more about City Sweets and Creamery. But once you get the restaurants as the base, it's then finding how we support specialty retail around it. And so the big thing is that I found with specialty retail is the restaurants, especially if you've got good ones, they go on wait, usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and it's helping those restaurants implement tools like Open Table, which right now it's free for restaurants to be able to use for all covers and all reservations till 2021. So if your restaurants want to give Open Table a tryout, it is a great solution that allows people to make reservations, allows them to manage a wait list in the restaurant. It integrates with most point of sale systems and allows users to give reviews. So I'm a really big fan of Open Table for restaurants. But now the retail stores is we have to help them maintain hours so they can capture that traffic and that interest while restaurants are on wait or having guests that are coming in and out of those dining experiences. So the girl that's pictured here in the middle is Amanda Ashley, and she worked for Limited Brands in Columbus as a designer and in fashion design for many years on the corporate side. And about 3 years ago, she said, I'm tired of working for a corporation. I'm not kind of cut out for that. She said, I really want to implement and open up my own boutique. And she had a Pinterest board established with some of her inspiration images. And so she was one of the first, new boutique operators to open up in town. And these are two of her employees that are pictured with her. But, whether it's her Facebook page or her online store or just her brand and her personality of, really finding ways to bring traffic and interest. They'll come shop in their store, they'll try on clothes, and of course they'll grab a cup of coffee, they'll do lunch in the downtown. Though that retail is really essential right now. And there are a lot of people that had corporate jobs, and especially as some of these large corporations or malls or the traditional retail is downsizing, there's a huge resurgence and a huge need for boutique shopping in small towns. Right now in Bellefontaine, we have 5 women's clothing boutiques. And you probably hear that, and some people may cringe and say, well, they probably carry the same stuff. They really are working hard in masterminding and really supporting each other to say, how can we not duplicate lines? How can we serve different clientele and create stops so if someone comes to shop in town, they shop and hit all of those stores. So, many of the buildings or most of the buildings in our town looked like this when we first started. And again, where we were lucky, as a case study and a model, we were able to buy these buildings for a relatively low cost because that's what had happened to our real estate market. So most buildings that we've acquired out of the 30 plus that we've done have been purchased for under $20,000. So that then helps to really have be able to get funds or use funds to significantly renovate. And part of what you have to do if you have buildings that look like that in town is I love renderings and I love working with architects and graphic designers to create renderings that will visualize what something can become. And so if you look at this before picture, this whole side of West Columbus was really struggling. You probably, 4 years ago wouldn't have felt safe, walking on the sidewalks. We have lots of problems with opioids. Some of the buildings, you can even see, some of the buildings had parts of their facade falling out on the sidewalk. Like it just was a really bad situation. But we recognize to say, if we give these buildings a look, visualize new retail on the first floor, maybe some professional offices, and then really trying to get some upper floor living. And a lot of that came from being a part of Heritage Ohio's trainings, connecting with many of you that are also Main Street communities, learning those best practices and advice. Like a lot of that is what really inspired us to be able to do these renderings. And so this is a few years ago. We didn't maybe have tenants, but we got the facades improved, we got new storefronts, and then the deeper strategy became, how can I stage some of these properties to be intentional for the kind of businesses that we want to have here? So for those of you familiar with COSI, it was a corporate kind of lunch, kind of sandwich shop that many of them or most of them went bankrupt and out of business. So I saw on Facebook Marketplace, there was some furniture being sold from a coffee shop at a very discounted rate. So we literally staged one of these buildings because we thought if we got coffee and got a new coffee shop on this side of town, it could really bring that life, that energy, that traffic. And that's when I met this guy. So Braden Campbell actually was running a coffee shop in Lipstick, Ohio, which is it's in Putnam County, about 3 hours north of us. And I heard a huge amount of buzz about him and about a business that he and his partners had created called the Uptown Market. It was like a miniature Whole Foods is about the only way I can describe it. They had Amish cheeses and deli meats, and they had bulk goods. And in the middle, Braden was operating a coffee bar. You see, he had lived in Chicago. He had lived in other major cities, being a part and working in coffee shops, being a part of the coffee culture. And so he had a chance to partner up with a friend, open up a new place in Lipstick. And I drove up and I'm talking with him. I'm drinking this amazing coffee. He's telling me about where the beans are sourced, the method for how it was ground, the method for how it's roasted. And truthfully, not only is the coffee great to drink, but I love hearing his passion, the backstory beyond it. So he reverses and started asking me about, what I'm doing and what I'm passionate about. And I'm like, I love historic buildings. I love small towns. I love entrepreneurship. I've got a problem. I'm working in a town that's kind of been underrated, that has been struggling. And he's like, really? Like where? And he's like, I'm on Bellefontaine, Ohio. Well, he smiled at me and he said, 10 years ago, I graduated from Ben Logan High School, which is right outside of Bellefontaine. He's like, that was my hometown. And he said, the first thing I want to do is I want to get out of there because I found it depressing. There was no opportunity for me. I didn't feel like I fit, all of those kind of things for why young people in droves were leaving our small towns. And so I said, well, would you willing to come back and let's take a tour? I'd really like to walk you around and see some of the buildings and meet some of the other people that are starting businesses here. So he did that. And here's where we're at. He's a native of Bellefontaine. He developed his brand with his partners called Native Coffee. And now that coffee shop is a huge part and renaissance of West Columbus. So, if you really listen to your community and your small business owners and the existing ecosystem about what's missing, what's needed, there's so many awesome nuggets for what your Main Street, your community, your investors, your people can actually take steps and do. So another common theme, if I wanted to recruit more small businesses, more restaurants, more things happening in our downtown, one of the most common things I was hearing is that I'm having a tough time providing healthcare for my family, for my employees. And I think all we know, this is a huge national issue. And so again, I put my entrepreneurial hat on. I said, how can we solve the healthcare problem? Well, I met a group of doctors that had a practice outside of our town, 3,500 patients. They've been doctors for many years, but in talking with them, they were really frustrated because dealing with insurance companies was prohibiting them from being great doctors. And so they had an innovative idea that they said is completely new in our industry. It's pretty bold, but Jason, you're open to bold, innovative things. Would you be willing to hear us out? And I said, I sure would. Well, this is Dr. Ryan Kaufman, and he and his fellow doctors dreamed up a practice called Hickory Direct Primary Care. It is a practice that for $41 a month, you become a patient, you get access to he and his doctors. He will come to your home. You get his cell phone number. And while he doesn't accept insurance, if you think about how you or how we use our insurance, is most primary care doctors, you don't hit your deductible. You are not able to use your insurance for those services. And so he has completely changed the model. And what my small businesses are so energized about Hickory Direct Primary Care, it being in the downtown, is that they can afford to provide membership to his practice to their employees. So think about that. You want to recruit better employees, help support your team, support your small business community, and you have a medical doctor in the downtown that can provide all of that and do it for $41 a month. Absolute game changer. Absolute game changer. And so, they're a big part of and getting medical services downtown. Again, great traffic, great, other medical service want to cluster around this practice. So that's been a really big fit. We talked about retail, and this is just another example of two amazing sisters that have opened up the Peachtree Boutique in our town. And, you walk into their store, and this is the coaching that we're working to provide to all of our entrepreneurs. How does the store smell? Do employees get greeted? Are bathrooms getting clean? Are you creating a unique specialty retail experience? So when you walk into their kids' room in the Peachtree Boutique, there is a real 40-foot yellow brick road. There is a 50-foot neon light rainbow, and there's all kinds of children's clothes and toys and books. It is a magical retail experience that you do not feel like you're in a small town. And it's something that not even the malls can replicate and duplicate. And they do events. They make things fun. They keep things interesting. And I think another strategy, if you're dealing with empty storefronts and you're really hitting those barriers and you're struggling to overcome to fill spaces, this is what we were running into many years ago on that West Columbus where the new coffee shop opened up, is I wanted to get retail next to the coffee shop because I want people to grab a cup of coffee. I want them to really explore and mosey around all of our antique malls, check out the boutiques, check out the kids stores, check out the men's store. Like, I want them to do that, but we didn't have that culture yet. So we're doing pop-up markets. And I met Christy Herlong, and she had this amazing fun brand called Dorsey's Holiday Market. And she curated makers and booth dealers from all around the state. And we provided her some discounted rent to do the holiday market, the hot chocolate bar, the live music, and she charged a ticket price. So we made it an exclusive event to get access to with pre-tickets that would sell, swag bags that the first 50 people would get coming through the door. But here's the neat thing that holiday market did, is that many of those booth dealers had such a great holiday market experience. They came to us at Small Nation as the landlord and said, I want to open up a store in your town. The energy, the creativity, like the movement and momentum that's happening here, I want to be a part of that. And so Nest 1896 opened up, Twig and Feather opened up. We started really saying, how can we become a destination for antiques? Here's why I like antiques. There's a trend happening in retail right now that's called the retro effect. And it's not new. For those of you that have been to business school and you think of the product life cycle, so there's those early adopters, then everyone kind of starts to take advantage, and then that curve starts to go down and slow down. Well, that happens in some towns, but here's what I love. Let's benefit from the retro effect because, and you see this in certain products, whether it's vinyl records, while it's, vintage furniture, vintage clothing, vintage jewelry. So antique malls, we do not have to compete with Amazon. And that's the thing, that as much that we can be coaching our retailers and working with them to how to overcome and beat the online business, there is a way to do it. And it's becoming a destination that's known for that. And you'll see, working with our city partners, notice that really awesome protruding sign that's out there. So I'll share another strategy that maybe you talk with your investors and your building owners to do. Originally, our antique mall operator, Beth Arthur, when we proposed to say, really, signage is one of the most important things you as a tenant can invest in. And we kind of penciled out some inspiration with that beautiful sign that hung off the building. Here's the problem with that, is that sign is about a $30,000 investment. And for most tenants, there is no way they have an extra $30,000 sitting around to make an investment in that sign. So we built a small little war chest in our building renovation budget that said, okay, tenant on day one, here's how we'll contribute and help out. We will invest in that really awesome sign to improve the streetscape, to enhance your business, but would you be willing to sign a longer term lease? And we increase that lease an extra $300 a month that over time you will help us contribute to pay for that investment on day one. And she analyzed that decision. She looked at the renderings for the sign and she said, I'm in. And I think if you were to walk into and ask her experience about what that sign has done for her business in the last 2 years, I think she would tell you this has been the best marketing expense that she's ever made. And lit up at night, it looks just like one of those vintage neon signs and brings tons of life and energy to West Columbus. Upper floor loft apartments. I will speak as a real estate developer. I wish we would have done these on day one. And here's why. Because the kind of people that have moved in, that now live and walk our streets and are part of our downtown has completely put it in a whole different level. So getting investors and cities and communities to understand how important it is to invest and improve and provide those upper floor housing options, I cannot emphasize that enough. Now you've got to make them inspirational. And here's a story. So another young couple came to town and bought our 70-year-old furniture store, Tanger's Furniture. And you know, when you connect with creative people in your town, you can always come up with solutions. So we had just completed renovating this project at Lofts 110. And we brought this couple in and they said, well, why don't we stage all of your lofts with our furniture? You know, number one, we'll get the benefit. You'll see their logos on a lot of the images that we shared, but we think we've got a chance to maybe sell some furniture. And so, after we did this, we did a pumpkin walk event in our town. We partnered up with United Way to do a fundraiser and charged $10 for a loft and hidden spaces tour. And that money, for the tickets, number one, it did two things. It made sure the people that were coming through, they'd kind of been curated to some level, that they were really interested in seeing the lofts. They're interested in supporting the United Way. And then secondly, all of our prospective tenants that were looking to lease here, they bought the preview ticket. They wanted to see it. And in about a month period of time, all 6 lofts were leased, 1 bedroom's at $1,250 a month, 2 bedrooms at $1,850 a month, and $37,000 in furniture sales for the local furniture store. So that was a situation with doing a loft project that was win-win-win. The deeper thing that comes from it, and you'll see kind of how these finishes and how things are designed here, it's preserving the historic integrity, the original beams, but also modern elements that people desire. So this clock tower face, we saw a Pinterest picture for how someone had used a clock tower face in a building in New York City. This came from Old Dog Salvage that was down by Dayton in Tip City. And it was actually a minted clock tower face from Boston in 1860, but it was taken to Dayton and tore out of a building in Dayton. But we got to reuse that and create a loft within a loft. But the kind of people that have been living here have also become business owners now in our town because they fell in love with our town. And then the perception changed from Bellefontaine being an underrated town to saying, wow, look at those lofts. Look at the kind of restaurants that are here. Look at the kind of retail stores that are here. Wow, there's people on the streets. People are spending money. There's shopping bags. All of that energy and that life built upon itself. So again, empty building. Because we had the restaurants established, we put graphics on this building that said, what do you want to see here? And then I put pictures of donuts, cupcakes, and cookies in a vinyl sticky back that was on those windows. And when we did that, we were being intentional. We knew that the town was missing a bakery because people love this experience of eating donuts, having hand-dipped ice cream, having that chance to walk the streets and eat ice cream out on the sidewalk. Like that was a visual that was really important to me. So I said, who in all of Ohio does the best job making donuts? And we heard at Indian Lake, there's a donut shop owned by Angie Hall. She and her husband also own a Hall's Kettle Corn, which is a kettle corn business that covers most of the fairs in Ohio. And they are an entrepreneurially driven couple that they are super passionate about making really great baked goods. So I asked her, would you ever consider opening up another location? And guys, here's the common theme of this presentation. She said no. And she said no to me many, many times, but she was vulnerable with me about something. She shared that her donut shop is really busy in the summer. She goes from 17 employees down to 3 employees in the winter because the lake traffic really, really slows down. So my business light went off and I asked her some more probing questions. I said, well, here's the deal. if you didn't have to let go of those 17 employees and deal with the pain of rehiring everyone again, having that second location, I think you could capture Christmas and Valentine's Day, which I know in your industry are two very, very popular days for sales. She thought about it for a little bit more, and I even made it easier for her. I said, what if I help you pick your paint colors? We coordinate and work with an architect to help build out your vision in your kitchen, the things that you need. And then we'll even help you with your logo and your name if you need that help, if you're struggling with that. So she was very thankful, very appreciative. And then I walked her in for the first time to look at the paint colors on the inside of the restaurant. And tears started swelling up in her face. And she looked right back at me and she says, I hate it. What? Like, what do you mean? Why do you hate it? She's, I want it to be white and clean and simple. I'm like, no, Angie, you're opening up this magical bakery like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. And it's called City Sweets and Creamery. Like, we've got to make it look magical. So this was like the colors that we chose. And again, I probably should have brought her in a little earlier before the paint colors, but here's the good news of the story. And she and I laugh about it today. They are now open, City Sweets and Creamery, at 5:30 in the morning, and they close on the weekends at 10 o'clock at night. And they've got the cupcakes, the cookies, the baked goods. They're in walking distance of all the other restaurants. And this is Angie right now. She's scooping some hand-dipped ice cream out. And this is with having other dessert places and coffee places in our town. But how do you get to the point of making a place like this profitable? Public-private partnerships. Notice the alleyway that's directly next to her building. That alleyway was going the opposite direction. And we recognize having a drive-up window would be really, really important. We didn't know COVID was coming. Boy, how thankful we're to have that now. But currently, putting that in, that really enhanced her business. And we work with the city. We paid to increase the height of the asphalt. City council worked to reverse the alleyway. But that public-private partnership and getting it done fast, huge driver to getting the success of City Sweets and Creamery. Signage, guys, like, I love signs. And I know some of you are probably looking at my wayfinding signs and saying, it's too much color. There's too much going on there. Wait a minute. That's outdoor advertising. That's advertising businesses. I hear and I agree with all of that. But here's what I'll tell you. I want you to come to town and see how my businesses are performing and doing and how my tenants are doing. They need signage and they need traffic. And I saw these wayfinding signs out in Napa, California, and all the small towns that surrounded Napa and Healdsburg. And I reached out to the village administrator and I said, I love your signs. How did you do it? And he said, I'll send you the drawings. Pretty simple. Tube steel and some stickers. So I asked the city if we could put something like this up. Do you know what they told me? No. Well, like I said, I've heard a lot of no's in my life, but I did a test experiment. And for those of you that may be a city planner, may be in zoning, I'm sorry, you need to cover your ears right now, because on a Sunday afternoon, we dug a hole, we removed a few bricks, we put a few bags of Quikrete in, and I did put this up. The next day, the city called pretty angry and pissed off. Understandably, I didn't ask for permission, I just did it. And I knew in the zoning code, it said I had 30 days before it had to be removed. So we did our test experiment with this. And here's what I'm proud of, is that many of the business owners in that 30 days and many of the chamber offices right behind where we did this test, thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for supporting me. But that experiment worked so well, we now have 8 of these in the historic district in the walking areas of our town. And I like them colorful because I want those 14,000 cars a day to say, this town's got a lot going on. Let's pull off, let's walk around, let's check out what we're doing. Kind of wrapping up with some of the stories here. And literally, I could spend a few hours sharing with you all the new businesses that have opened, the buildings that have been renovated, the entrepreneurs that are behind them. And many of them are free to download, to view, to see right on our website, which is smallnationstrong.com. If you click on the success tab, you will see and scroll through all the blog posts. And here, guys, I'm going to make it super easy for you. You can rip and duplicate. Please do. And, one thing that we love to do in our town, if you're inspired by hearing what's happening, there's something on our website. You can request more information to take a downtown tour. We give group tours probably 3 days a week. We welcome, you're welcome to bring your mask if you want to bring your mask. A lot of it is outside, so it's super safe, it's super fun, but you can eat in the restaurants, you can meet some of the businesses and the owners, and we definitely would welcome you to visit yourself. But if you want to visit virtually and check out stuff virtually, the website's got tons of resources. So empty building. The ice storm hit our town in 2005. Roof collapsed in on the Antique Mall. Devastating event because there was no insurance on the building. All the booth dealers moved out. Just broke our hearts. But at the time, I looked at the building. I said, the city's going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to tear it down. And we just one of our new residents in our loft apartments was a franchisee for Anytime Fitness, and he had multiple Anytime Fitness locations. And he was new to Bellefontaine because he had went through a divorce, a life change, and he had kids in Lima, an aging mom that lived in Columbus. And he said, I want to live in a new town where I can just, be in the middle of it. And he became part of Lyle Inslee became part of our downtown ecosystem. He became a business coach, a health coach. And he came to me and he said, my lease renewal's up for my Anytime Fitness in the big shopping center outside of town. But he said, I don't want to be there anymore. I want to be a part of this momentum that's happening in the downtown. Well, of course, you imagine with the downtown gym, you hear there's no parking. There's no reason you want to go in that big empty building. Well, Lyle proved them wrong. He not only put his Anytime Fitness in, he bought the 2 CrossFit gyms in our area and put the Loco Depot in next to it. 21,000 square foot of fitness and group health space. Dance school on the 2nd floor. So while mom and dad are working out downstairs, kids can learn karate and dance on the 2nd floor. Yoga studios. So the Anytime Fitness and the Loco Depot became an entire health and wellness facility. And I want you to think about this, guys. What does this do for your downtown? What does this do for the residential property portfolio in walking distance of the downtown gym? Game changer. Now, here's the neatest fact. And Lyle shares these numbers. He moved from about a 700 membership operation when he was outside of town. And when he moved downtown, he's now over 1,000 customers, active members a month that not only have the 24-hour option, but they have the premium option too now with the Loco Depot and the group training. So from a business standpoint, it can make sense to encourage those non-traditional businesses that are in the shopping centers now more than ever to come back downtown. And this is a great example and analogy. So I'm going to kind of wrap up because I want to move into question and answers, but I could keep showing you buildings and telling stories of, this is kind of where we are getting things post-COVID. What business models, because the restaurants, and we can talk more, if you've got restaurants in your town that are struggling, we as a team, so to explain our model, many of these restaurants we're equity partners with now. So we are working with them to help them buy effectively, implement new technology to be able to do to-go, be able to use new points of sale systems, really helping that industry. Because we recognize for Main Street, restaurants are one of the most important bases of the pyramid. But there's going to be other models that are going to come through, and I'm just going to share. So this is what the building looked like on West Columbus about 8 months ago. This is some work by Callie Lange from Revival Design Studio in Salina. So we met Laura and Humberto. They founded a food truck. So Humberto immigrated from Mexico 10 years ago to Springfield, met his wife, Laura. He worked for a corporate company servicing food service at the university at Wittenberg. And then he saved up his money and he bought his first food truck. And he met his wife, Laura, who's really good at marketing. And I'm really proud of them because they're debt-free. They built a cult-like following for their amazing, authentic Mexican food. And so we're partnering with them to create and tell their story, but open up the Flying Pepper Cantina. And that is going to also be next to a new model that we're launching called Build Co-working Space. So this is a new co-working facility specifically for small towns and rural communities. And we believe right now, even post-COVID, that co-working is going to be such an important thing because all of us, working from home and can be great for a while, but after a while it can be not so great. So, I just want to kind of do that. And then, I can dive into marketing. And then that's the big thing that we're now doing to help our towns is really identify the town's branding, building, like we're working at Bellefontaine to really get some ownership around Ohio's most lovable downtown and what it means to be lovable, what it means to love on others and love on others' businesses. And then, not only visually highlighting the storytelling, but also giving them the walking tour, the experiences, the reasons why they should visit the town and experience. But, I'm going to kind of wrap up and say, I just, we at Small Nation are so thankful for Heritage Ohio, are so thankful for all of you who are out there fighting right now to keep your town strong and to revitalize and to innovate. And you have a partner here and friends here in Bellefontaine that are here to help you and also give you examples, models, courage, all those kind of things that you need to overcome what you're facing. And I do welcome you. If you're new to us or our organization, please join our website. We've got a mailing list. We send out a hard copy newsletter. A lot of these things are free because I believe the best way is that when you give to others, it all comes full circle. And so many people have done that for me. But thank you allowing me to share some of our success stories, our learnings, our journey. And I'm excited to work with you to overcome and really succeed in this new world. But thank you today.
Jason, thanks so much. I do have a couple of questions for you. Do most of your rehab projects involve federal and state tax credits?
So in 2017, there was the Tax and Jobs Cut Act. That did away with the 10% federal historic credit. So prior to that, we were using almost exclusively the 10% federal credit. We have been working with Liz Argyle. We've established our historic district, which is kind of a good first step. We did have some individual properties in our downtown that were on the register, but now that the district's been established, it does make it available to a lot more developers in our town to take advantage of the federal. We are pursuing, we have, if you look at this building right here, so Joyce will recognize this, but this was Heritage Ohio's, I think, top development opportunity for about 4 or 5 years. It was the historic Canby building. With Heritage Ohio's focus and kind of attention to this building, the city did not tear it down. We were able to put together a buying group and acquired the building, and we've invested to put a new roof on it. All the facade has been renovated, but here's our dream. We'd like to see a boutique hotel here. We're watching our friends in Tiffin and Seneca County. There were some historic credits just awarded to their boutique hotel, looking for some mentorship of how that process actually works. We do have 2 luxury Airbnbs in the downtown right now. We partnered up with a Columbus firm called Epicurean Properties. Our Airbnbs are doing great. And if you don't have Airbnbs in your downtown now, it's been a great fit for us. We've got a case study on our website all about it. But yeah, kind of a long-winded way to answer your question. But no, we've not been able to take advantage of the 20% credit. And we've not been able to use any state credits to date yet in our development efforts here.
What are specific ways you counter the misconception that there is no parking?
So signage, I will go back to, is probably one of the most important things. And then giving people a reason to enjoy the walk. And, we've created some infographics in our town. I'm sure many of you have seen those similar ones of the Walmart parking lot and really estimating how many steps from a typical parking space in a Walmart parking lot to actually the door. And in many of our downtowns, that distance is much smaller. It's just the way that things are, spatially laid out. It's hard for people to understand those differences. What I try to do is give people a reason to enjoy the experience from where they're parking, and trying to reduce any barriers for that parking. So does it look nice? Is the signage easy to identify? Is it free? If it's not free, is it well explained about how to pay or how the parking spaces are designated? And then even today, in our downtown, we have 2 electric plugins. And I made a post on my Facebook page the other day. I've been monitoring how many Teslas are coming to our tiny little town. Those 2 electric plugins are almost occupied all the time. And so it's kind of being intentional about creating clear spaces where people can park, but then also really getting on the marketing side of things of explaining that we actually really do have a lot of parking, but enjoy the walk, the experience, get some murals in those parking lots, get better lighting in those parking lots, all those elements from a visual and spatial standpoint that says, I actually enjoy the journey and the experience to walk. I would also say in terms of accessibility, making it so it's handicap friendly. And that's something else that we have been revisiting with some of our streetscape and working with some of our planning partners is, really identifying where it's smart and where you can enhance those handicap spaces. So it really is accessible to all types of people and all ages.
So have you seen any downside to the DORA designation, the designated outdoor refreshment areas, like law enforcement calls, trash, those kinds of things?
So I want to explain that we are very early in this DORA process. In fact, I think we're coming up on our third DORA weekend this next weekend. So what I will share is it's been helpful, whether it's the committee that's leading the DORA or the restaurants that are members of the DORA, is really having a high level of communication of what's working, what's not working, especially in COVID right now. You know, we're all pretty antsy about allowing anyone to belly up to a bar or come in and impact our dining rooms when we're, you know, really trying to, we are maintaining social distancing, but also, you know, watching occupancy. So it's taken a huge element of creativity to really, you know, work through that process. I'll again say we have not had, that I'm aware of, any negative situations with law enforcement or anyone really abusing it. But I think it really does come down to how the restaurants, working with their bartenders, working with their employees, you know, really kind of explain how it's to work. Here's the other thing, the other secret that I'd say is, you know, I think we're charging $8, $9 a beer, and they're 12-ounce glasses, and we're serving, 16-ounce glasses, and we're serving 12-ounce pours. So it's a premium price. And I think part of it, that's going to attract people that are not there, you know, just to get wasted. That's going to say they're actually there to be, you know, to maybe enjoy a drink outside or to get dinner outside. Another strategy you might work with your restaurants is advertising drinks to go. So that has been something we didn't think of, and literally had this epiphany last week on our restaurant group call, is when you have existing diners, instead of, you know, you want to encourage people from the outside to come in to just do the DORA, but actually train the servers to say, this is a DORA weekend. We are a DORA venue. If you would like, when you leave here, you're welcome to take drinks to go. We are testing that out for the first time. I think it's going to be a huge upsell and a huge opportunity to get more people staying downtown longer. So it's just a strategy I want to share with any DORA communities that haven't thought of that or not doing that. I thought it was game changer. So really like that idea.
Great. And then Joyce tell the story about selling coffee area industries.
So you broke up there just a little bit. What was the question again?
Joyce would like to hear the story about selling coffee coupons to your area industries.
So our problem was, in the beginning, we couldn't recruit new coffee shops. And I think part of that's the issue when you have a lot of vacant buildings, is how do we get the business model to work for the operator and for the landlord? Because the build out of a basic commercial kitchen is going to be, I mean, I say basic, not full commercial kitchen, but basic for a coffee shop or a smoothie shop or a sweet store is probably going to be between $50,000 and $25,000. So the landlord has to, either the tenant's got to help out or the landlord's got to contribute, and you got to get rents that will cover that. So what we did is we went to our local factories, because remember, we've got a strong manufacturing base in our community. The issue that the factories were having was recruiting and identifying new employees to fill employment spaces they had. And so we went, instead of going, we went to kind of HR and we talked to marketing, and we said, Mr. Factory, or Mrs. Factory, what can we do to help and support you being able to recruit new employees and retain new employees? And, for many times the HR director, like one of them, she kind of talked with me and she said, I would love more perks and benefits that I can offer my employees that they actually appreciate. So we printed up a card that was for the local coffee shop, and we asked that factory for a sponsorship. So would you be willing to commit to a sponsorship for a year for $350 a month? We'll give you 100 of these cards that you can give to your employees, that every time they come into the coffee shop, the coffee is on you. And the goal of that sponsorship is do two things. Number one, if we found 3, 4, 5 factories to sign on to that sponsorship, we knew that money was going to show up in our bank account or arrive prior to opening. So it gave us a little bit of leeway to say our rent is going to be covered to pay the landlord because we've got this sponsorship for the coffee shop. So it was a strategy to launch a business, but make sure their rents were going to be covered while also providing benefits to those factories, those businesses, as a perk that they could give to their employees to keep in their wallet, they're like, wow, my company always buys me free coffee. That's pretty awesome. And I want to brag and tell other people about how great my company is in supporting me as an employee and also our local businesses.
Great, thanks so much, Jason. If anyone has any final questions, we just have about 5 minutes left here, and I'd like to take any final questions that you might have at this time. Jason, thanks so much for sharing your stories with us. I did have someone say, Mary Lou from Vermilion said, you don't look like the kind of guy that would sink a sign without permission, but I love it. So
occasionally you've got to break a few rules.
Absolutely, I'm all in for those midnight sessions of sinking signs. That's terrific. For anyone who's interested, we do have our 2 p.m. session today, which is marking your retail store in this crazy world. So please join us at 2 o'clock for our next session. There's one final question. What if your town doesn't have a Jason Duff?
So I happen to believe that they're there. And so here's what you've got to do is get the investors and the old guards. The old guard may be the people that own the buildings. They may be the investors. They may be in the bankers in the area. And then we've got to get people with really good ideas. So that may be your creative class. That might be, they might exist in your local community college, or they may be a person that just retired. That, you know, they've got a great pension, but they really don't want to stop working. And so here's where I think the job that I try to do, and I think you can do too, is you've got to get those people talking. And the last thing that I think you can do, and I mean this, make your community jealous of what other communities have and are doing. Have them go see what is happening so they can come back and say, we got to retool some things here. We got to think about things a little bit differently. And that's probably the greatest thing that I really want to offer all of you. If you're looking to get out of your house and take a day trip experience, come on a Friday, a Saturday or Sunday and walk our streets. Everything that I've shared with you today, stop into the businesses and ask for yourself, business owner, are you making money? Look on the street. Are the restaurants busy? You know, rip and duplicate those ideas. And I truthfully believe you can take that back along with our case studies, or if you hit a roadblock, email me. I'm on all the social media channels. You can reach out through social media. I love helping other people because all of you are helping me. We're growing and helping our towns together. And again, I think that's what's special about Heritage Ohio is, you guys are pulling together these communities, uniting them, standing up for them, resourcing them. And we just have to realize right now, we are not alone. We're a force. We're a force that is really, through these trends and through these changes, there is a huge opportunity for our main streets right now. And I'm excited to be a part of that with all of you.
Just one final question, and I don't know if you can do this in 2 minutes or less, Jason, but what's the narrative and how do you access relevant data to convince local officials, investors, residents, etc., in a very small town that multiple restaurants, diverse boutique stores, etc., will serve more than just its local residents? So
there is a case study that I am going to make sure everyone gets here. It is called the Bellefontaine case study. It's about 8 pages, 9 pages. I promise you read this. There is some infographics in there. There is some data in there. I want you to print it off and take it to your local leaders, and I want you to make them jealous. There's also lots of videos that you literally can drop in an email and say, look at this town. Look, they were underrated. They were struggling. They were dying. And then some people came together and decided to change it. And I promise you, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, I have been there, and many of us on this call have been there too. It can be done, and there are other communities, and I could talk about a lot of them that are inspiring me right now. We have to pull the inspiration from them, and then we have to pull people with their hands out right now. Let's pull them up, and let's work together. We can do this together, and I promise you it can be done, and it can be successful. You can make money, and you can really have a huge impact on your town. I promise.
And this is probably in the same line of thinking. Can you tell us just a snippet about your pizza shop and how you went to them having a separate dessert business outside
Quick comment. one of the most uncomfortable conversations I've ever had was asking all of our restaurants to take dessert off the menu. Even though 600 sold an amazing cannoli at $2.95 that I will tell you is delicious, incredible, amazing, if someone sits in that table for an extra 35 minutes to 45 minutes to eat it, we're not selling our amazing $30 gourmet pizzas. So what we found is that when we work with the restaurant group to minimize or remove dessert from the menu, the dessert places thrived, and then the restaurants turned tables faster and they started making more money and profit. I'm really proud of our restaurant group, and we take a lot of cues from Cameron Mitchell. We use the same CPA. We buy from the same vendors so we can leverage our volume and our cost. We utilize similar marketing techniques because we recognize if we work together, we rise together, and we make more money and we create more success.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Jason. And we're only 1 minute over. Congratulations.
Hey, thank you guys. Great session today.
Thanks so much for having being here with us, Jason, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Remember that you'll get a link to the recording for today's session, so if you'd like to share that, then feel free to do that, and we will see you all again today at 2 o'clock. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.